I just think it's such an ugly word. No one wants to hear you like being called fat, calling someone else fat. So I do not like that word in general.
I would say it is fatty foods, given I'm a dietitian, so I might be a little bit biased, but things like butter, fried foods, or even healthy fats, like oils and that kind of thing. So probably fatty foods is the first thing that comes to mind.
Probably being a physician, the first thing I think about is some of my patients who are overweight or obese.
As a child, I always struggled with my weight. I always thought it was normal because when I looked around me, everyone looked like me. Then I thought, how did society become obese? Is it in our control to control these things? This led me to make this documentary about obesity.
To me, I think of obesity as an excess accumulation of fat, and the body mass index is a way of measuring that, and it's basically a measurement of your weight for your height, because obviously two people could have the same weight, but depending on their height, it could make them a normal weight or overweight.
For most people, it's a lifestyle choice and not as much genetic. There are some cases where it is genetic, but for most people, it is a lifestyle choice.
I think there certainly are some research coming out that shows that certain genes may predispose someone to obesity or being overweight.
I think primarily because I think of it as a lifestyle choice, a little bit like smoking, and we don't call smoking a disease. It's a lifestyle behavior that can lead to disease, and that's kind of how I think of obesity.
I think that obesity predisposes people to diseases, but is obesity a disease in itself? No.
If people feel like they have a disease, they feel like it's something that happened to them. They don't quite feel the personal responsibility, and so they don't feel as motivated to make a change of their own accord. They just want to get a pill, or they want to have something done to them to take away this disease. When we think of obesity as being a lifestyle issue, we're a lot more likely to have people be motivated to make a change.
Being an obese girl was hard. Skinny girls would call me names and tease me. Some days at school I wouldn't eat. I would go home and cry. At home I had to eat what my mom prepared. I wasn't old enough to control what my mom cooked. Sometimes she would make fried foods, but all I really wanted was a salad. I guess I learned at an early age not to make the healthiest choices. You learn what you get taught.
A lot of people in society think that people who are overweight are lazy, and that is not true. A lot of times there are other circumstances that are preventing someone from being able to either exercise or eat right.
I think for adults, often it's a perception that they're being discriminated against. There might be some clear examples, but I think often it's because of the experience that they've often had as a child, because many obese adults were obese children. It's easy to carry that into adulthood, and even if nobody is thinking something negatively, it's easy to assume that they might be thinking something negative.
We know that Americans are getting fatter. We know that we're getting heavier. And I think there's lots of different reasons for that. We know that our portions have increased significantly. We know people are busy, people are not working out as much. We know all these different factors. So it's kind of a side effect of our lifestyle, and health is not necessarily a priority for a lot of people.
There's risks of heart disease, heart failure, stroke, diabetes, high blood pressure. Some cancers are a higher risk when you're obese. Arthritis is another one. Generally not as a young person, but over years of carrying extra weight, the bones do wear down.
Type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stroke, hypertension, musculoskeletal issues, like back pains and knee problems.
One thing we are seeing more and more in adolescents is diabetes. It used to be that the type 2 diabetes we really saw only in adults, say over age 30, but as our society's been getting more overweight and obese, we're seeing that creep down to younger ages, and it's not uncommon now to see teenagers who have diabetes.
I wonder, would people make changes if they knew they could die from being obese? Being a victim of people talking about me lowered my self-esteem. I always ate just to feel better, but I didn't realize I was facing death.
If you are depressed, you might turn to food for comfort. And then you do that, you feel better, then you turn to food again, and it's a cycle. So you can become obese because you are depressed and turn to food, or you can be obese and depressed because of that.
Certain emotions, particularly ones that are more anxious related or more sad related, people do often tend to comfort themselves through food. And so sometimes that even then becomes a habit, even when maybe that same emotion isn't there. A person might just be used to eating certain foods, certain times of the day, certain quantities of food, but I think often emotions can trigger people to overeat.
We know that if you are stressed, then your blood pressure is going to go up. We know that your blood sugar can actually go up if you're stressed. We know if you're in pain, both of those things can go up as well.
We have, a lot more ways of observing the mind called functional MRIs, and ways to see what the brain is doing, what parts of the brain are lighting up with different emotions or different experiences. So there's a lot of research into that area. But I think in terms of obesity, the body impacts the mind in some of the ways we already talked about in terms of emotions, motivation, habits, patterns.
After speaking with these experts, I learned there are some aspects of our lifestyle that we have control over, like the choices we make about food.
I think it's also important for people to understand how to shop within a grocery store, and what I call it is perimeter shopping. The ingredients around the perimeter, the outside edge of the grocery store, are often the fresh ingredients. And that's where the fresh vegetables are, the fresh fruits are, the fresh cuts of meat, the fresh dairy products. When you start shopping the aisles is where you find a lot of the packaged food that has a lot of the preservatives and the chemicals and the colorings and things like that.
Don't just go and buy the frozen items that would last for a long time. Still try to buy the healthier options. Yes, they might not last as long, and you might have to go to the grocery store more often, which would be difficult in a food desert, but it will help make those better choices.
It's difficult, and it takes even more effort. It takes effort to eat healthy. You have to go to the grocery store. You have to buy these foods. You do have to cook somewhat, which a lot of people don't like to do. And so, of course, when you're in a food desert, it's going to take even more effort to go find the foods, just find healthy foods. You're going to have to drive a little farther, take a bus a little bit farther. So it's difficult.
But I think what people have to think of this as is a lifestyle change. It's not a diet that you do for 2 months and then go back to your old ways, because that hasn't made a change and you'll gain any weight right back that you lost. So it's really a new way of living. It's a new way of eating. It's a new way of acting, being physically healthy and active. So I think people have to start with that mindset that this is a change I'm making for the rest of my life.
Another lifestyle choice we can make is how much we exercise.
It's recommended that you exercise between 30 and 60 minutes a day. And that's just not cardio. A lot of people think that if I get on a treadmill for 60 minutes, I'll end up losing weight. So not only do you want to do your cardio, which you do, resistance training is very important. So what it does is when you exercise and do cardio for 30 minutes, once you stop and your heart rate goes back to normal, you are done burning extra calories. If you do resistance training, you're building muscle. So your body, after you're done, needs to continue rebuilding the muscle you just worked on. So you're going to end up burning more calories and losing more weight afterwards.
Lastly, we should think about the amount of how much we eat. Instead of sitting on the couch eating a bag of chips, count the chips out. Put them in a small bowl.
A lot of times we lose our ability to know when we're full. One of my sort of sayings about how to lose weight is eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. So part of that's retraining yourself. And one way to do that is through portion control. So one example of that is taking one serving but not getting second helpings. A lot of people are used to, after their first helping, going back and get second helpings, because it's part of our mind perceiving, helping us understand if we're hungry or if we're full. So if you've got a giant plate and you've only got a few small portions on there, you think it's not enough to fill yourself up. And so you have this feeling, I'm going to be hungry when I finish. Whereas if you have a small plate, you have those same portion sizes on there, the plate looks full. So your brain says to yourself, boy, I'm going to be full when I finish this. Look at all this food that's on my plate.
Try to make small changes. So when I'm working with patients, I will encourage them to make one change. Whether it be focusing on eating breakfast every day, whether it be focusing on going to the gym or getting some sort of activity once a week, or getting one serving of fruit and vegetable in their diet if they're literally not getting any. And then working on that change for about 4 to 6 weeks, because we know that it takes a long time for something to become habit. About 6 weeks for something to become routine and part of your lifestyle.
No matter my shape or size, I learned to love myself. But I also learned the importance of living a healthy lifestyle. Still, this issue is complex and can be overwhelming. There is not a simple answer. But I do know, if you take baby steps, you will find new ways to take control and make a new life for yourself. Nobody is responsible for your health but you.